Hey, LarkenRose here. Pardon my weird mushroom hat. Place I usually record is like 100 degrees right now, and I was already sweaty from running around outside doing stuff. So the Charlie Kirk situation gives a perfect example of how bad most people are at listening and thinking too, but let's just start with the listening. Because if your goal is to hate somebody, you hear ahead of time, that person's bad. Ew, they say bad things, they believe bad things. You already have a filter. And when you listen to that person talk, you're going to assume, oh, he's secretly bad. He must mean something bad by that. Instead of listening to try to understand what somebody's actually saying and what they think. Now, that's not the same as agreeing with them. And this is a distinction that it's sad how few people seem to grasp this. Understanding somebody's position and what they're saying doesn't mean that they're not saying something stupid or immoral or destructive. It just means you're trying to make sure what it is they're trying to communicate. And then you analyze that. You assess that. You think about that. You respond to that. And maybe you respond by agreeing, maybe you respond by pointing out it's stupid, maybe you respond by pointing out it's evil. But if you don't bother listening, you don't know who you're talking to. And I see that constantly. I just saw it again in the last 2 videos I posted, where people under the video post a comment that shows they weren't paying any attention to what I said. They complain about things I didn't say, and then they have this big long diatribe based on something I came nowhere near saying or implying or hinting at because I don't believe it. But they have this big diatribe because they didn't bother to listen because their brain wasn't trying to listen. They were trying to have an argument. And Charlie Kirk is one of the best examples of, he's not the one not listening. A lot of the liberals who argue with him and condemn him don't listen to him. And I see... So among those who are like, well, he had it coming, or whether they're celebrating all the way or just saying, well, he was a horrible person or whatever, I see them making memes quoting him. And I immediately know what he meant. And the fact that they quote him and showing, this is how racist he was, this is how this he was, shows that they're not paying attention. They're not even trying to get what he's saying. They would rather hate somebody than listen to somebody. And sadly, that's true of a hell of a lot of people, right, left, just people in general. A lot of people would rather hate somebody else than listen to them. Now, you can listen to somebody and then hate them. You can listen carefully and assess it and make sure you're clear on what it is they think and what they're saying, what they advocate, and then condemn them, like I totally would of Charlie Kirk. His support of authoritarianism and violence when it's done in the name of law, and the support of the military-industrial complex and the warmongering, that was horrible. But I would listen and make sure I knew what he was saying and what he believed in. And his most ardent haters don't do that. And I was going to give a couple examples because I see them, they're so zealously self-righteous, they don't notice that in their own posts they're showing their inability to listen and inability to think. So, a bunch of people, oh, he was a horrible racist. And I'm thinking, well, there are some racists in the world. I haven't heard him say anything racist. And I know a lot of people get labeled with that just so leftists don't have to respond to what they're actually saying. So, what is it that Charlie said that you think is racist? And I've seen 2 quotes that amounted to the same thing. Here's why he's racist. And those quotes do not show that he's racist at all, in any way, shape, or form. They show that the people pointing to that would rather hate somebody than pay attention to what they're actually saying. And this one is partly listening and partly thinking. And these days, asking Americans to do both, listen and think, that's a tall order, especially for the political left these days, who pay no attention, who will shout down anybody who, you don't agree with me, so you're an evil fascist. So the example they used, there were 2 quotes. I don't have the direct quotes, but doesn't matter. You'll get the point anyway. One is Charlie Kirk said something like, if I see a black pilot, because of affirmative action type things, I think, okay, is he qualified or did he get there by being black? If you think that's racist, it's because you don't know how to think. And you didn't bother listening to the person to find out why do they think this. Not assuming they're going to be right, but just find out why they think that. And I will demonstrate how stupid it is to call that racist. If there was a new affirmative action law that said, redheads have had a tough time, people are mean to them, so we're going to give them a head start in everything. Becoming pilots, becoming doctors, whatever. If there's a bunch of candidates for some job, some position, some graduating diploma from somewhere or other, we're going to kind of give redheads a head start. One, that would be immoral and wrong. That shouldn't happen. That's bogus and stupid. Two, if you then got into a plane and you saw me, my hair used to be redder than it is, if you saw some redhead pilot, it would be absolutely rational for you to think, okay, is that actually a good pilot? Or is that somebody who shouldn't really be a pilot? He's not really the best candidate. He's there because of this stupid thing that gave redheads a head start. That is an absolutely rational thing to think and has nothing to do with hating redheads. It has to do with being able to think. And that's what a lot of people objecting to the DEI hires are objecting to, and they should, because it's insane and evil. To say that, well, we have all these candidates, we're going to hire you. You're not the best candidate. You're not the most qualified. And if it's something where people's lives are at stake, like a pilot or a doctor, well, we don't really give a shit. We're going to have things be a little bit less safe to fill a quota of hiring a certain category of people. That is bogus and stupid and evil, and it doesn't matter what the category is. It can be redheads, it can be black people, it can be trans people, whoever the hell it is. If you're intentionally warping things, especially when lives are at stake, to give some people a head start that they didn't actually earn by being the best at it, yeah, that endangers people. So if Charlie Kirk said the exact same thing about redheads, I wouldn't go, why do you hate redheads? If there was actually like affirmative action for redheads, and he had said, if I see a redheaded pilot, I think, okay, are you the most qualified, or did you get that job because of this stupid law? And he would say that about a stupid law promoting redheads, exactly as much as he would say it about a stupid law trying to push black people ahead who haven't qualified. Now, plenty of people do qualify who are black and don't need the head start. And actually, it's a giant insult to them to basically say the category of people you're in, they're so inferior, they need a head start. That really is racist. The DEI policies and the affirmative action, it really is racist because you're basically telling a category of people, we don't think you're capable of getting ahead unless government uses the force of law to give you a head start. Like, wow, could you possibly be more insulting to a group of people and tell them, we have no faith that you're capable. Like, you can't just, work hard and study and focus and get good at being a doctor or a pilot even though, obviously, lots and lots of them already have and are very qualified. But that's about as racist as you can get. It's not racist to say, don't give somebody a job because of the color of their skin. That's stupid. And if lives are on the line, yeah, people should be concerned. Are you there because you're really good at that job? And maybe you are. If you're black or you're redhead or whatever, and you're really good at that job, and that's why you got it, it's actually an insult to you that now people have to think, did you get that? Because, and Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, two economists. Walter has passed on. I got to shake his hand at an event I saw him at many years ago before he passed on. Were two of my heroes even before I was a voluntarist, even when I was sort of conservative, constitutionalist leaning. They're both black. They're both economists. And did they both do? At least Walter Williams at some point getting some job somewhere. He said, if I find out you gave me this job because I'm black, I'm quitting in a heartbeat. If you're not giving me this job because I'm actually qualified, that's really insulting. Like, well, you're going to give me a head start. You're not really good enough, but you're going to give me a head start because you caring white people are just going to give a hand up to these poor, pathetic blacks who can't possibly accomplish it on their own. That is 100% racist. And he said, if I find out you did that, I'm out of here. Like, if you don't think I'm the best person for the job, don't freaking hire me. So he's saying what I would say about it and what Charlie Kirk would say about it. Why on earth would you do this weird artificial mangling of it? But anyway, the point isn't even the argument. The point is that there are so many liberals saying, look how racist he is, because they didn't take 2 seconds to say, all right, why is he saying that? Can I actually comprehend why he would say that? He didn't say, oh, if I see a black person doing anything, I assume they're incompetent. Had nothing to do with that. And if you paid any attention and knew how to listen, you would know it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with if there's a program pushing certain people ahead to positions they may not be qualified for, that's stupid. And if lives are at stake, that's a reason for concern. There's nothing racist in that. And the fact that those are the things that I see leftists posting, look how racist he is, means he isn't racist. Because the people who are actually racist, they don't try very hard to hide it. I mean, some do a little bit, but it comes out pretty quickly and obviously. And you don't have to quote and misrepresent something that literally has nothing to do with that, which they did. So how many people hated Charlie Kirk because he was racist when he wasn't? How many hated him because he believed that homosexuals should be stoned to death? He didn't. He didn't say that. In fact, he celebrated the fact that Trump was trying to push to decriminalize homosexuality in 70 countries around the world. Now, what the U.S. government, what business they have meddling in other countries or meddling anywhere, that's a different question. But Charlie Kirk celebrated that. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't be a crime to do that. Even if he and a lot of other people think, well, I think that's a sin and it's bad and it's whatever. Okay, if they think that and don't advocate violence against those people, whatever, who cares? You really think you're going to have the approval of everybody in the world? I know I don't. And I don't care. I just want everybody in the world to refrain from initiating violence against me, and then we can peacefully coexist. That's all it takes. So we have, oh, he's racist, and the evidence they give shows that they don't know how to think. So I have yet to see anything that actually indicates that Charlie Kirk was racist. And he wanted homosexuals stoned to death. No, he didn't. And Stephen King, I mean, the guy's been an awesome author and written a bunch of books, but he's just been brainwashed into leftist idiocy and came out and said, oh, he wants homosexuals stoned to death. People said, really? You want to quote that? And then you quote it and go, oh, he said no such thing. He talked about things the Bible were saying, and they want to spin it that way because they want to hate him. If somebody believed that and said that out loud, they would just say it out loud, and then you could go, wow, that's screwed up. And I'd be right next to you saying, wow, that's screwed up. And if he tries to stone anybody for being homosexual, I'll lend them my gun so they can shoot him to stop him from aggressing against them. But he didn't do that. He didn't say that. There's no indication he believed that. But people are so eager to have an enemy to hate that they'll just imagine stuff. Oh, anyway, so Stephen King said that, and somebody said, no, he didn't. Look at the actual quote. And then Stephen King came out and apologized and said, no, he didn't say that. Okay. But how many people are going to hear you making that stupid, bogus, false accusation that don't hear the follow-up, whoops, just kidding, never mind, my mistake? Because the oops, my mistake, never catches up to the slander. More people are going to hear the slander. So there's lots of people condemning Charlie Kirk because he believed in stoning homosexuals, which he did not. Yeah, but he's a racist. No, he was not. And how many people are today still vehemently hating him and sort of thinking, well, he had it coming because of this, which wasn't true, and this, which wasn't true. Now, I have criticisms, like I already mentioned, based on things he's actually said. I don't have to make shit up to criticize the statist immoral positions he had, which isn't the same as killing somebody for it, for having a bogus opinion. If the standard is believing bogus things and advocating political force makes you deserve death, then almost the whole world should be blown up. Because almost everybody advocates it by way of government. I used to back when I was a statist. Glad nobody killed me for it. I wasn't out there using the violence, but I was voting Republican, and I just want limited violence. But the number of people who pay no attention, don't listen, and they don't want to understand. And you can so see that. And this is the saddest thing. I mean, there's plenty to criticize about Charlie Kirk's position, which applies to almost every conservative. But the saddest thing to me is that he was trying to reach out and have a discussion with a bunch of leftists who did not want to have a discussion. They didn't want to hear him. Now, every once in a while, one would actually listen and go, oh, so that's what, and you could see the shock, like, yeah, but all my other liberal friends said you're evil and hateful, so now I don't know what to do because I asked you a question and didn't get an evil, hateful response. So if you ask the average leftist, can you give a rundown of what you think Charlie Kirk believed? Almost all of them would get almost all of it wrong. Now, I can tell you what I think he believed that was wrong, and I can show you why, because he says that. He doesn't hide what he believes. And I can point to it and say, that's immoral. This warmongering bullshit, that's immoral. This authoritarian crap done in the name of law, that's immoral and bogus. It hurts real people. It's wrong to condone that. But first, I listen to find out what he actually believes. And so many liberals don't do that, and they don't want to do that. They want to have someone to hate. They want to be able to have that self-righteous feeling of, we're the good guys and we're going to cancel you because you said something we disagree with. And it's usually something they didn't pay attention to and didn't understand and didn't listen to. And they don't want to have to listen because they absolutely have the mindset of actual fascists, which is anybody with an opinion we don't like should be silenced. And then Charlie Kirk was silenced in the most drastic, dramatic, horrible way you can imagine. And some of them still aren't going to listen. And to me, that's the saddest thing. And I would have loved to get a chance to sit down with Charlie Kirk and do candles in the dark thing on him. Because he would stumble and fall on his face with his statist crap, because everybody does. It's inherently contradictory. It doesn't add up. He'd probably get defensive and try to run me over, and just because that's what statists do. But I would have loved to have that exchange because he liked the exchange. Now, was he all the way, did he do little tricks and manipulative debate tactics? Yeah, like a lot of people do. But it would have been fun to basically test how well-meaning he was, because a lot of statists are well-meaning. Now, at some point, what does that even mean? Most of the Nazis were well-meaning. Literally, the people who supported the Third Reich and thought, that's going to make our nation strong and blah, blah, blah. They weren't thinking, let's murder a bunch of people. Most of the people who supported it didn't think that was going to happen, because they didn't understand history and they were duped statists. The people who rah-rah-rah cheered Mao into power, most of them were well-intentioned, ignorant as hell, gullible as hell, cheered for the worst mass murderer in the history of the world, who then murdered 40-some million of his own people. But they were well-intent. They thought they were the good guy. I'll put it that way. And the reason I'd put it that way is because well-intentioned, at some point, if you're trying not to hear what other people have to say, if you're trying not to re-examine your beliefs and your position, and you're trying to shout down anyone or kill anyone, who's trying to explain why they think you're wrong, at some point you can't really pretend you're well-intentioned anymore. And so that's sort of a sliding scale. Like, most people think they're the good guys. Liberals think that, Republicans think that, almost everybody thinks of themselves as one of the good guys. And by the way, a lot of Republicans are also very bad at listening and understanding. And I know, because I've talked to a lot of them, and they constantly misrepresent what I believe on a regular basis. It's just that the liberals do it way worse as a general rule. But when I explain, I want voluntary interactions. Oh, you want every man for himself. Chaos. It's like, no, where on earth did you get that? Is that just something you jump to so you can conveniently dismiss and condemn what I have to say? Yeah. You mean just like the liberals did with Charlie Kirk? Yeah. Because people do that with religious beliefs, and political beliefs are religious beliefs. I don't mean religious, the thing that people call religion, because what most people call religion is window dressing. What they really worship is the state and government. It's what they pray to save them. That's whose commandments they actually obey and consider it a sin to break the law. But I've talked about that before. But so zero statists are all that good at listening. But it would have been interesting to see at what point Charlie Kirk would shut down and refuse to listen to the ideas of self-ownership and non-aggression in a stateless society. I'm sure he would have gone irrational. Almost everybody does. I did when I was a statist. Took me a long time of noticing, wait, I'm arguing things that don't match up and that don't add up and are self-contradictory and hypocritical. That's how I became a voluntarist. By accidentally noticing that my statist beliefs didn't add up, they didn't make sense, they weren't consistent, they weren't principled. And by the time I got principled, I realized, oops, the government I advocate now isn't government anymore. It's just people being people having the same rights that everybody else has. And they can still organize and cooperate and defend themselves and even have organized defense, but they're still just people. They don't magically have extra rights because they have badges. It's not okay to rob people to fund something because it's for the common good, which both Republicans and Democrats totally believe in. But I can attest firsthand how hard it is to get people to listen. And the thing is, there is no discussion, there's no debate, there's no exchange of ideas if the other person is trying not to listen. Now, a lot of people are also just bad at thinking because our education system is an indoctrination system. It's Prussian indoctrination system did not teach them to think. It taught them memorize, repeat, get a good grade, go work at a factory. That's what it was for. They described that as the purpose, the people who made the Prussian indoctrination system. So a lot of people are very, very bad at thinking. But the thing that has to come before thinking is listening. You have to know what you're debating, what you're arguing against. And it's a little bit ironic because that's a human trait, including among anarchists. And the reason I made the Candles in the Dark program for how to talk to statists is because I see a bunch of anarchists going, all right, as soon as I know you believe that, I'm just going to tell you how stupid and bogus you are. Even if that's true, that still isn't listening. That's not like actually hearing the person and trying to understand them, which doesn't mean agreeing with them. It means I want to get why you believe that. I want to all the way understand why you believe this thing. Even if the thing's still immoral and irrational and everything else. So a lot of Candles in the Dark is just actually listen to the person. Because what you're going to find in almost everybody is a voluntarist buried under a layer of statist crap they were taught. And the two don't match at all. So they're never consistent in their own brain. Zero people who believe in government are consistent inside their own head. And that's what Candles in the Dark is for. Is talking to their inner voluntarist, having them notice the conflict between what they really believe and the statist crap they were taught, and having them see that and notice it, and then letting them, or sometimes helping them, sort that out and decide, well, what is it? Is it that disobeying the law is always bad and you should throw your moral code out the window and just do whatever the state tells you? Or at some point, does your own conscience outrank the state? And you should sometimes break the law if that's the right thing to do, if your conscience tells you that's the right thing to do. So just getting to that discussion is something the vast majority of people have never thought about. And I know it, because every time I do Candles in the Dark, very quickly get to a point where the person's like, huh. And this is if it's calm and peaceful and pleasant. And they can even be smiling and having fun, but they're like, wow, and I haven't thought about that before. And I can get almost anybody, any status at that point, 5 or 10 minutes, and then they're processing it. Wow. But I can't get them there if I don't listen to them first, if the discussion isn't about what they believe and why. And so, yeah, even voluntarists, a lot of them could do better at listening to understanding other people, which is not the same as do better at agreeing with other people. No, listen to them. And if you're all the way clear they believe something stupid, it's still stupid. You can even still tell them it's stupid. They probably won't like hearing it that way. Or you can tell them it's immoral. Like I will still say, Charlie Kirk advocated immoral violence against huge numbers of people in the form of immigration laws and drug laws, a whole bunch of laws, and the warmongering, the war machine. He condoned that, and he said out loud, but I would listen to him first to know what he said. And the fact that people are now getting killed, I'm suspicious as hell of like what actually happened to make that happen. But the fact that people are celebrating somebody getting killed as a result of those hateful people not listening, because, and the projecting of hate, oh, he's hateful. The political left calling Charlie Kirk hateful is just the height of irony, because you can see in a bunch of the people who talk to him, debate him, they're just so angry and hateful. You're just evil and you spread hate and intolerance. And he's like, how? How do you think I do that? Well, you see, you hate gay people? No. And you're a racist? No, I'm not. Well, and then they storm off because they are so emotionally attached to their hatred, they don't want to listen. And really, really bad things happen as a result of people not listening. And in fact, Charlie Kirk said something very close to that. That if people can't talk and listen and have an exchange of ideas, really bad things happen. And that is absolutely true. And sadly, all statists are pretty bad at listening and usually pretty bad at thinking. But right now, the political left is just utterly horrible at it. The people they yell the loudest at and hate the most, it's just a result of them hallucinating. Because when they come up against somebody who's actually racist, who says, yeah, them dead Negroes are inferior and we should do... Like, when somebody like that comes out and they go, that's horrible, we're canceling you, that person doesn't care. Like, they're not hiding it. They're being a racist dumbass. You calling them that, they don't care. Like, they're putting it on display for the whole world to see. So they're just sort of like, whatever. And I can point out how stupid they are, and you could point out how stupid they are. They don't care, and that doesn't give you any attention. It doesn't give you any drama. Because if you hate somebody and they don't care, and hardly anybody else is listening to them, whoop-de-doo. But if you can convince yourself that somebody with a big audience is evil, and you can righteously condemn them and hate them, and wish for their death or celebrate their death to show how good you are, to show how virtuous you are, you're just a plaything of the worst people in the world. And watching people falling for that is just, it's a tad discouraging, to say the least. And it's just amazing, because then when I talk to leftists and say, all right, you claim he's a racist based on what? And they'll say, this and that and the other thing. And I was saying, yeah, he's right about that, and it has nothing to do with racism. Have you bothered to listen to why he said that? Or are you so eager to have somebody to hate so you can feel superior that you don't really care what he said, don't really care what he believed? Because a world where people care more about having an enemy to hate than they do about listening, holy crap, that's not a pleasant world. I'll tell you the only people who want that world and who benefit from that world: ruling classes. And ironically, it's the ruling classes that Charlie Kirk wanted, and it's the ruling classes that the Democrats want. And they put on their little puppet show as if they're opposites. And we all lose. All the left voters, all the right voters, all the people who don't vote, all the voluntarists, we all lose, and the only people who win are the sociopaths who wield political power, who duped you into hating people you wouldn't listen to. And like I said, you can listen to somebody and go, okay, I'm clear about what they think, and I think they suck, and they're a horrible person, and condemn them. Yeah, you can do that. And if people actually listened first, the list of people they actually hated would be much, 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 much shorter. They could still think lots of people were wrong. In a lot of cases, they could think, well, I understand why you think that, but here's why that's a stupid conclusion and why you're totally wrong. And that's what discussions and debates are good for. If both sides accept, okay, you think you're right and I think I'm right, and we're both trying to do the right thing, now let's have an exchange of ideas and see what happens. But if the exchange is, you're evil, no, you're evil, it's just stupid and pointless. And it is happening on both sides. It's just right now you see it a lot more vocally from the left because they feel emboldened. Because right now, I know this is going to trigger some people. Right now, white, straight men are the group you're societally allowed to hate in this country. And you can have a tantrum about that. But people can come out and say, maybe we don't want to hear from white men anymore. And lots of liberals would go, yeah. And if somebody comes out and says, we don't want to hear from black people, almost everybody would go, ugh, what the hell's wrong with you, dude? Like, cut that collectivist bullshit. But right now, the fashionable collectivist bullshit, for the leftist anyway, is to hate religious people and hate white people and hate men. And they feel okay about it. And it doesn't count as racist because there's more white people. So it's not racist to hate white people because there's more of them. Except there totally isn't. But inside this line, around this country, there's more of them, except in some places where there isn't. But still, for some reason, it's okay to hate that group. And we're righteous and valiant, we on the left, for hating that category of people. No, you're not. You're literally no better than the KKK. You're just open about it because right now it's comfortable to hate that group. Meanwhile, you project onto everybody else, anybody who disagrees with you, you're just racist. And to see that label just randomly thrown about, it isn't just lazy, it isn't just obnoxious, it's genuinely hateful and intolerant, by the way. Anybody who disagrees with me is a racist and a misogynist and all this list and a fascist and all these lists of things. Can you respond to what they actually said? Explain why they're wrong, why what they're advocating is immoral? No, but I can call them names. That is the opposite of tolerance. That's the opposite of listening. That is hate. That is intolerance. That is stupidity. That is closed-mindedness. And there's a hell of a lot of it in this country right now. There's a hell of a lot of it around the world. And sadly, the end result is that you have huge throngs of people on the right and the left and all over the world and political parties all over the world self-righteously hating other people who don't exist. They're hallucinating everybody in that party is evil and this and that and all these bad things. And the Republicans do it too. Democrats are evil. All of them, really? Some of them are pretty bonkers. The most vocal tend to be the most bonkers. You think everyone who votes Democrat is like genuinely, intentionally malicious and evil? Or are you doing exactly what they do? I want to be in the good club. And to quote Peter Gabriel, how can we be in if there is no outside? There need to be others to hate and to resent. And if you listen to people, yeah, you might find out some people advocated stupid stuff, might advocate immoral stuff, especially if they believe in government. And you might find out, oh, they meant well, so they're just mistaken. Or you might find out that you meant well and you were mistaken. Because if you're a Democrat or a Republican and you mean well, you're mistaken. And you won't ever know that. And you won't ever actually be on the right side, on the side of truth and justice and freedom, until you learn to listen. And then, maybe even think.